Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So, today's quick quiz session is on validating emotions. And this session is particularly essential for neonatal units because the families you work with on the unit are likely to experience a range of emotions. And some of these emotions can be sadness, despair, confusion, and quite a lot of distress. And they can be quite complex to face to support. So, one very quick win and valuable skill to have is to validate emotions. So, we'll talk quite a bit about that. So, what I'll be covering, hopefully within time, is just a reflection on validating emotions, why we choose to validate on a neonatal unit, challenges with validating emotions. A lot of us feel like we're doing it, but we may struggle with actually executing it, and how we can actually do it. So, giving you guys some examples and how we can use these skills in the units. And then I'll summarize everything, and hopefully, we'll have some time for questions or any feedback that you have. So before we get into it, I think it would be good to just pause just for a brief moment because we are very busy people. We probably have quite a lot of things on our minds, quite a lot of things that we're doing while we're also on the call. So if you could just pause, maybe focus on our breath while we're at it, just so we can help ourselves to be a lot more present just for the next few minutes. So just a very brief moment, if we could just pause all the busyness that our mind is trying to do or that our fingers are tapping away at doing and just tune in to this session. Thank you so much for pausing with me. Okay, so reflection. I'd like to ask, what does it mean to validate emotions? What does that look like? Because I can give a whole bunch of information, but it will be good to hear what you actually think that means. If you can, please click onto the link. I'm not sure if it is clickable, but if you can scan the QR code and type in 3166587, the question should pop up. And if you could put some responses in Slido, that would be really helpful for us. Okay, we've got quite a few responses here. Hearing, understanding, appreciating. I'm liking the variety here. Giving space for all emotions that someone may feel. Yep, definitely. Feeling heard. I like that. Understanding, active listening. Yes, one of our quick wins webinars. Accepting even if you don't agree with their perspective. Recognize and reflect on or be inquisitive about emotions. That's nicely put. Thank you so much for your feedback, guys. It's really nice to hear. Aware emotions exist, understanding others' emotions without judging. Yeah, that's pretty much tied into quite a lot of what I'll be saying in the next few slides, just focusing on the emotions and not jumping into judging or responding in a way that may not be as helpful. And I think it'll be good to kind of talk about why we validate on a neonatal unit. So I put three main reasons here. One being it supports coping. So it's expected for families as well as staff to experience a range of emotions on the unit, but providing the space to listen, express, and just respect the emotions that we're faced with can reduce its intensity, and it really supports the person to just cope with what they're dealing with. We can't take away the emotions that we feel, that others feel, but we can support people to cope with them. And when we validate, we start that process, we start the coping process. Building trust, that's a super important skill trait to have in any unit. Trust is an unspoken ethical demand. I think it's what we all probably really value in human relationships. And when we validate emotions, we are trying so hard to really understand what's going on for that person. And we're instilling that trust that what they're saying, we're actually hearing it. We're sitting with it. We're not trying to kind of tamper with it or fix it. We're just being present with them. We're trusting what they have to say. We're listening to them. And then contributing to care. So a lot of the care that we do can be verbal, it can be physical, it may not even be with the families in the room. But a big part of caring is actually just hearing what our families have to say, allowing them to just experience what they are experiencing and being that supportive, present staff member that they may not always have come across in their lives. So, the essential part of validating emotions, the listening part, shows that we are really trying to care for them. We may not be able to kind of immediately make things better, but being that caring profession in a time that could be very challenging for them is very, very worthwhile. So challenges in validating emotions. You've all mentioned some really good themes on as to how we can validate emotions and what it looks like. But what are the challenges in actually doing those things? It would be really great if you can go back to the Slido link. It should be the same code. What do we find most challenging about validating emotions? Over identification. Yep. Separating out our own. That's an interesting one. Because I think, like I mentioned, we also have those intense emotions working in such a unit, and then we're facing quite a lot of them. So, yes, that can happen where the emotions just kind of mesh. Avoiding temptation to solve, environment, defensiveness, that's an interesting one. Feeling awkward, oh, I can relate, definitely. Ensuring you're in a good space to take on someone else's emotion. Yep. Aggressiveness, yep, definitely. Some we like gratitude, others we don't like anger or resentment. Yeah, there's so much that could be happening that could make it so challenging for us to just validate an emotion. Trying not to sound scripted. Oh gosh, yes. Not sounding patronizing. Yeah, I think that's definitely a common theme. A lack of time to discuss. Yep, yep. I think when we're trying to be as present as possible for people, it varies. Some people need more time than others, and we may not always have the time. Fear of encouraging negative emotions. That's an interesting point, actually. A very interesting one. Worrying about saying the wrong thing. Yep. I think that's a very common barrier. And that worry could also prevent us from actually saying anything. There was quite a lot of comments there, so apologies if I haven't read out ones that you've put, but I'm loving the fact that we're able to kind of spot a lot of the common challenges that we probably all face. Bearing difficult emotions without identifying with them. Yep. Misunderstanding of the language used. Yes. Yes. Language is so diverse that we're not always going to get it right. And that does impair how we validate. Cultural and social conditioning. Yeah. I think that's a much bigger topic. But yes, that could contribute as to why we could find it challenging to validate. Okay, so you've mentioned all the good bits. I've just got three bits that could probably add to that if it wasn't already mentioned. The need to fix. I do think I did see a comment that popped up. This is a very, very common challenge to validating emotions because it's natural. Like when we are facing very distressing emotions from others, we may just want to be able to help them and just make it all better. But that does stop us from validating the emotion that's present. Pressure and discomfort. So NICU environments are very high pressured, and that does put limits on what we can do and how much time we spend with people. So again, that could be a reason as to why it can be challenging to validate emotions. And then competing demands of the ward. And with the competing demands, it may not even just mean all the tasks that you have to do in the day. It could just be personal stresses that you're dealing with. It could be exhaustion that you had from the past few weeks and everything that's overwhelming all into one. That can make it very challenging for us to validate emotions. So how can we validate emotions? We're aware of the challenges, but how can we actually go about doing it in a way that lands? A very useful way to remember how we validate emotions is to think of the ABC technique. So the A stands for actively listening. So really hearing what we see and hearing what we hear. So a lot of the times, families that we face, they may not actually tell us what they're feeling, but we can kind of spot the signs in their body language, actively listening to what's going on for them. B, being present and non-judgmental. So just actually kind of understanding what the emotion is instead of being quick to go into the next part of the conversation. And I think it was also mentioned in one of the comments, just not having that judgmental kind of reaction. Sometimes we can't help it. But if we're just truly trying to validate what's going on for them, that will be a lot more helpful for them than trying to kind of give them a reason. And the C is compassionate response. So when we validate, we're actively hearing their emotion, we're being present and allowing the emotion to just be and not be fixed. We can respond compassionately where we're trying to explore more, not necessarily trying to fix it, but we're really just trying to allow the emotion to be felt. So here are some examples. We've got this quote here from a parent. I find it so hard not being able to take Leo home. Leaving him here each night when I get to go home makes me feel so guilty. A validating response to that could be, it sounds like you're feeling really upset about having to leave Leo here. I can see why that would be difficult. So in that comment alone, what that person is doing is just trying to acknowledge their emotion. They really just want to explore the impacts of the emotion on the parent. An invalidating response could be, don't feel guilty. It's not a big deal. Every parent feels this way. This may be said very kind of calmly, not trying to harm the parent in any way, but in actuality, it's minimizing their emotion. It's dismissing their experience. It's not really allowing them to feel what they're feeling, which is perfectly valid. Another example, I was so scared when Leo was having surgery. I just kept thinking about what could go wrong. And this is probably quite a common picture that we face on the unit. A validating response could be, it makes sense that you'd be worried about the surgery outcome. Can you tell me more about that? What would you going through? Again, we're focusing on the emotion in the first part of this sentence. In the second part, we're trying to explore further how is this emotion impacting them? We're really trying to sit with that emotion instead of just passing straight through it. An invalidating response would be, well, at least they're okay now. Not everyone is able to make it. This is, again, minimizing their emotion and it's comparing their experience to another. So it's shifting the focus. Another example, I'm really struggling to express several times a day. Knowing how this will impact Leo makes me feel so bad. A validating response, I can see this is important to you. Is there anything I can do to help? Focusing on the emotion, offering that compassionate support. So following that ABC technique. Invalidating, I'm sorry you feel this way. You just need to calm down and keep trying. Again, this may not be said with ill intent, but it is minimizing their emotion and it's also implying that there's a problem with their emotion. And when we make people feel that way, we tend to give them advice on how to fix their emotions instead of just allowing them to feel. Some practical skills that we could use if we're trying to get into the habit of validating emotions a lot more. focusing on the emotion when we're talking to our families, focusing on what the feeling is, saying what we hear them saying. I can see that you're very upset. Here's what I'm hearing. It makes sense that you feel, tell me more. So we're not necessarily agreeing with them, but we just want to explore what that emotion is. We want to validate them. If we're struggling with this, what we could do is focus on the meaning. What are they really trying to tell us about what they're feeling? Allow pauses for processing. Sometimes it takes a bit of time for people to really express their emotions, and silence isn't always a bad thing. It also helps us to really reflect on what they've said. Offering support, that's the C part in the ABC technique. When we've heard their emotion, we've allowed that emotion to be processed. How can we be compassionate in response? So I've got a very short video here, which I will try and play. Just want to make sure I have sound. Okay.
Hi.
Morning, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's you been?
Um, yeah, okay, I think. I mean, I don't know, I do worry about him when I'm not here, and yeah, I couldn't sleep last night for thinking about him.
Oh, gosh, that sounds really difficult for you not being able to sleep.
Yeah. Well, obviously I've got to get up to Express anyway, but I just, I don't know, I just think about him a lot, and worry about him being here on his own. And
Yeah, it's very natural to have those worries,
is
and
it?
he's here all the time. So yeah, it's very natural for you to feel this way.
Okay. Um, yeah.
Would you like us to try some skin to skin?
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I do want to.
Yeah.
I'm a bit worried about whether his wires might, I might do something wrong or
Mm.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very common for families to feel that way. I'm here to help. So how about we do this together and I can help you?
Yeah, I'd like that. Maybe if I could I just need a bit of time to sit and just say hello to him and like gather myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you mentioned you've been really worried, you haven't really slept, so I'm happy to allow you to have some time alone with Leo, and I'll be around. So you're welcome to call me whenever you need me.
Okay, maybe if I come and find you in a bit and then we can do that.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. That was a very brief role play of how we could validate a family member's emotions. I'm not able to see the chat or anyone. Um,
Yeah, so in the chat, we've had acknowledging how the mother is feeling,
ah,
repeating what she's understood, giving time to name the worries. So really helpful things that people have noticed in the chat.
lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, so to summarize, validating helps us provide elements of coping through challenges. This can be quite difficult when we are validating and we may not necessarily know what's actually working for the person, or we may not know exactly what to say. If we're thinking about some of the skills we mentioned, which is just focus on the emotion, trying to really listen, not trying to fix, then we find it a lot more easier to just be present with that emotion to actually validate, as opposed to trying to fix it and move on to the next thing. So a quick way that we can remember how we validate is the ABC technique. A, actively listen to what the emotion is. B, be empathic and compassionately respond by naming the emotion. And again, with that ABC technique, this can take quite a bit of time that we may not always have. But if we get into the habit of always spotting what emotion could look like for someone, what they're actually saying, and really kind of giving ourselves time to not have to do things, but just to be present, someone could find it very valuable. So very quick skills that I want to reiterate is focus on the emotion, listen, reflect the emotion back, and allow emotions to be processed without solutions. And also just kind of ending with remembering that validation is not about agreeing if emotions are right or wrong. It's not about changing the emotion. It's just about showing understanding of the validity of the emotions that others feel. This starts the process of building that trust, starts the process of helping people to cope with emotions, and it naturally reduces the intensity of emotions. I've put another Slido up. It should be the same original link. It would be really helpful if you could hop on there and provide us feedback, or if there's any questions, please feel free to mention it in the chat or mention it at all. Thank you so much for those that have started to respond. It's really helpful for us to know.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa, for an excellent session. Yeah, like Melissa said, we would really appreciate if you could just take a minute to answer that really quick question to rate how you found the session. Um, Getting the feedback is really important for us to keep delivering and improving these sessions as we go on. We have a couple of minutes also for questions if anyone has any. So if you would like to kind of either put them in the chat or ask them now, you're welcome to. Or if you want to hang on for a few minutes after we will be here kind of on the call as well. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here and for interacting so brilliantly with the session as well. It's really helpful for us. Please do come to our next session. It will be on Wednesday, the 15th of April. It will be about responding when someone is angry. So we hope to see you there. Thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.